Hey Kim, hey Michelle. How are we doing today? So I can see a few people joining in. I'm going to give it a few minutes and then we will get started. Hey Leandra. Hey Chantel. Hi Jaylene. So I hope we're all okay. This is the project that we're going to be doing this evening. Good evening, Liz. So yeah, this is the project that we're going to be doing. It's only a small project. You could use it as a card or, you know, whatever you like. But I wanted to do something using the new stencil that goes with the older stamp set, just to show you how I use that, how it works. Hello, Katie. Hello, Marianne. So as I said, we will give it a minute. I've got all my colours that I'm using. Of course, you can use any colours that you like. You don't have to use the same ones as me. But I thought, you know, I need to use my new colours. And these were the colours that I put together when I did the live the other evening. So they are the 8 colours that I really liked together. So I'm hoping that you can see. I've had to adjust my desk a little bit, but I'm hoping you can see everything okay. My computer screen is, you know, lagging behind as always. Let's roll my sleeves up. So I'm all set, ready to go. I'll tell you what I didn't put on the list. So when I always forget something. Every time I do a list, I do forget something. So I did give you your card sizes for you to make the project. However, I didn't tell you that you need a spare piece of card. It doesn't have to be too big, but you do need a spare piece of card to be able to do our flowers. Okay, so do rush off. We've got a few minutes, but do rush off. Grab yourself a spare piece of cardstock. You don't want it to be too thick because you are going to be cutting it out. And obviously the thicker it is, the harder it is on the hands. You know what it's like. So you do need a spare piece of cardstock. You need the pieces that I'd already said about, that I'd given you sizes for. Hi, Sally. Hi, Jenny. So you do need the pieces that I'd already given you sizes for and a couple of little scrap pieces, but you do also need a spare piece, and that's going to be to create our flowers. So do make sure that you have that. Now we are going to be doing, so I'm going to be doing an ombre effect in the background. You are going to want, and I did put this on the list, you're going to want a flat paintbrush. So you want a flat paintbrush, and you're also going to want either some kitchen towel or a cloth, because we are going to dry brush this, and we're not going to be cleaning our brush in between. Yeah, the colours look amazing together. Hey, Anita. Yeah, the colours really do look nice together. I want to do swatches of all of my colours, my existing colours now, and we can see how they all work together. But I know that they're just going to all work beautifully. So as I said, the first things that you're going to need your paint, you're going to need your paintbrush, you're going to need some cloth or paper towel to wipe your brush on, to wipe it off in between colours. And you're going to want not your offcuts, but you are going to want your smallest piece of white card. So we've got a smaller piece of white card, we've got our black, which obviously is our frame, and then we've got our larger piece of white card, which is going to sit in behind. So we're going to take our smaller one first. Yeah, I think it gives you a better idea of your colours to be able to put your colours together. So, right, let's put the black to one side because we definitely don't need that. I have got a paint palette off to the side. And what I'm going to do, I have an old Eclectica index sheet, and I'm using that as my paint palette because obviously I had to change all mine and I wasn't going to waste them. Hey Ingrid, hi Michelle. So what I am going to do, I am going to get all of my colours onto my paint mat. You do not need a lot, okay? That they're going to go a long way. We've only got a small, you know, remember we only have a small piece of cardstock that we're working on, so you don't need a lot. So I will show you in a second how much I've put down. Well, I can show you now how much I'm starting to put down. You can see I've just got the smallest drop of each colour. We do not need a lot. Yeah, so we're going to be using, so for this project, while I'm putting my paint out, we are using PS474. So that is the new stencil that we're going to be using, and we're coordinating that with my older stamp set, which is TS024. Okay, so those are the two that we are using. I'm going to move that out of the way. I don't want it, it's going to catch on the light, so we don't want to do that. So I am just putting out my paints ready. As I said, we do not need a lot. You only need the smallest amount. This paint is going to go a long way, and we only have a small piece of card to be working on. You don't want to end up that you have to scrape everything back into your bowls. So how are we doing? How are we doing today? I've been busy today. I wasn't sure. I knew that I wanted to use this stencil and the stamp set for tonight, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So I had to kind of sit and think about that earlier to figure it out. I'll put a little bit more of the yellow. These colours just work so nicely together. Okay, so I'm going to put my stamp and stencil to one side for a minute. We do not need these right now. Let's put them out of the way. I don't know about you, but when I'm working, I have stuff everywhere. So you can see where I was working on here earlier. Let's put those to one side. Obviously, this is the project that we're going to be doing. We're going to work on our top page first. See, even this, look, how pretty does this look? It looks lovely. I'm going to use that for something after, I'm sure. Right, let's turn that way. Okay, so I am going to grab my tissue. I'm going to grab my flat brush, and what I'm going to do is I am going to work in the order on the palette. So I'm going to start with my butternut. So I'm going to go butternut, peach fuzz, then watermelon, then prawn, then go into the zinc, then Bermuda, then coastal, then cerulean. So I'm kind of going through, as you can see it on my palette. And I'm going to start at one end. We're going to do an ombre effect. So I'm going to go from one end and we're going to work to the other. And I'm literally just going to be drying my brush off in between. I'm not going to be cleaning. Okay, I'm not going to be dipping in the water because I want the brush to stay quite dry. Okay, so I'm going to start. I'm going to go into my butternut first, and I'm just going to go along with my butternut, and then I'm going to just scrub it off. Okay, and then I'm going to go into my next colour. So my next colour is the peach, and I'm just going to go backwards and forwards. And I've done it in this order so that I don't have to be drying in between. I shouldn't have too much of a problem being able to work from one colour to the next without there being too much of an issue. Okay, and if I feel that I need to go back, I can go back to the previous. So I can go back to the previous colour, scrub, and go in again so that I get a little bit of a blend going on. Nice, looking nice so far. So of course these first ones, the first 4 colours, no problem whatsoever. They work really nicely. You want to work quick because you want to work while the paint's still wet. Paperartsy paints dry really, really fast. So you want to be working while they're still nice and wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my cloth, get my brush, and I'm really going to kind of squeeze that out. I'm not going to clean it, just squeeze it out. I don't mind if there's a little bit of that pink still on there because obviously we're going to be blending with the pink. And now I'm going to go in with my zinc. So I'm going to go in with the zinc. I don't mind if there's a little bit of pink still on there because it's just going to help it to blend. If I want to go back and add a little bit more pink. But the faster you work, the better the mixing is going to be. Okay, I'm kind of thinking I want to go back a little bit more pink. Nice. Then let's scrub off, and then I'm going to go Bermuda. So Bermuda's my next one. These colours are so yummy together. They just work so well. So Bermuda, I'm going to go with Coastal. And if you haven't got, right, so if your blend is not perfect, you can see my blending is not perfect, okay, but for this it doesn't matter because we're going to be embossing over the top. Because we're going to be embossing, you're not going to see that it's not perfect. You're just going to see that beautiful colour coming through in behind. So my last one is my Cerulean. Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit more Coastal. They just work really well. I knew I wanted some more muted colours, but then I was a little bit worried. Were they going to go with the brights? And they really, really do. Let's just give that a little blend out. Just want to put a little bit more of that grey. That's the zinc. There we go. I think I'm going to just go back and give this brush a really good kind of squeeze out. Doesn't have to be perfect. Really good kind of squeeze out so it's nice and dry. And I'm just going to go back a little bit more there. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. There we go. So you can see it's not perfectly blended, but it's good enough. For what we want to do, it is good enough. Okay. So I'm just going to I've put my brush into water now so that it doesn't dry off. And I'm going to put this to one side. I'm going to leave this to dry for a second. Keep your paint on your palette. So we'll put this to one side and then I'm going to bring in, my sheet of card because I'm going to be doing my stenciling. So we're going to stencil for our flowers, okay? So this is stencil number PS474. So this is a new one. Hey Elizabeth. So we are going to be using, for the larger flowers, we're going to use this one, and this one. So you can see I was using them earlier. And then for the smaller flowers, we're only going to be using the 2. We're not going to use the third one because you don't have to use the whole thing. And I'll show you. I did a few earlier, so I'll show you that as we go along. So let me bring you in a bit. You don't need to be quite so far away. Let's bring you in. So what I'm going to do, so on my original, I did 2 in the turquoisey colours, So I did a small and a large, and then I did one of the large in the orangey pink colours. Okay, so I'm going to do that again, which means I can do my large and my small pretty much at the same time, and then we'll do this one afterwards. So what we want to do is I'm going to work with paint. So I'm going to use a mix of the paint colours that I've got on my palette, and I'm just going to use a mix of what's left. Okay, so let me grab a sponge. So what I'm going to do is, let's grab, so I'm going to do the Bermuda first. So the Bermuda is going to be my larger flower shapes. Okay, so I'm just going to go in, I'm just dabbing, so I've put my paint on the sponge. Because we're going to cut this out, if I go over the edge of the stencil, I'm really not too worried. We're going to cut this out afterwards. And the beauty of doing this and doing it with that particular stamp is you do not need to be perfect. You know, I was literally randomly stamping earlier with the stamp on top. I didn't try and line up, and it worked perfectly well. So that's my first one. Okay, so that's what we get. You can see it's not perfect. My sponge was a little bit damp. It's not perfect. It does not matter. Okay, for this particular technique, it does not matter. And then what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use the larger shape of the small. I'm going to go in with this one, which is the second size. So each flower has 3 sizes. So it's got a large, a medium and a small. The same with the smaller flower stamp. It's got a large, a medium and a small. This one I'm going to go in with the medium. And again, I'm going to do that with the Bermuda. Okay. Just going to go in. Got my heat tool at hand so that I can get it dry in between. Okay, so let me just give that a quick blast. As I said, the Paperartsy paints dry really fast, so it's really not too much of an issue. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in with my Coastal. So Coastal is my next colour. I'm going to go in with this. So what I did on the stencil itself, they're kind of sitting, they're sitting the right way up. Okay, so as long as you keep the stencil the same way, they're going to kind of slot in to where they need to go. And to be honest, it doesn't have to be perfectly lined up. As long as this shape is inside this shape, it's going to work. Okay, so I'm just going to go in. I'm going to put my stencil down. So what I've just done, just in case, because obviously you won't be able to see this, but you'll be able to see on this one. So on this one, there's like a little notch. There's a little centre notch. And all I've done, and not for any reason, it wasn't designed this way, is I'm just lining up my corner of this with that little notch. Okay, and as long as I make sure the rest of it is inside, it's going to work. And to be honest, even if it wasn't inside, even if it was outside slightly, it's still going to work. Okay, so I'm going in with my Coastal. And now I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to go inside of that shape. The good thing about these colours, so most of the colours that I'm using here are all opaque colours. And obviously the difference with using an opaque colour is, obviously it covers what is going on underneath. If we're using translucents, we have to think a little bit differently. So when I lift that away, you can see we've now got 2 colours going on. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same. So for the small one, I'm going to use the smallest flower. And I'm just going to go in, so this one, I'm just going to go in, look, it's off to the side a little bit. I'm going to purposely do it so you can see. Okay, I'm going to go off to the side a little bit. I'm just putting it down. I'm going to go off to the side. As long as we've got those colours going on, we're all good. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so you can see I've gone off to the side a little bit. It's really not going to matter. Not going to matter at all. So I'm just going to give that one a quick dry. Takes seconds. Seconds. So now I'm going to go in, so I don't need to do anything else to this one. I'm going to leave this as it is. So I've only used the two inside pieces. I didn't use the outside piece on this. Of course you can, but my idea is you don't have to use the whole thing. Okay, and I just want to show you that you don't have to use the whole thing. So I've got my second colour. I'm going to go in with my third. Okay, so as long as, let's have a look, let's go there, and I'm going to go in with cerulean this time. So cerulean's going to be my third colour, and I'm just going to do the same. And of course you can do this with inks, you can do this with, you could do it with watercolour paints, you could even do it with markers, I guess. You could find a way to make it work. So we can take that off. So now you can see we have 3 different colours going on. Now it might not be quite so bright on the screen, but it's pretty visible from where I'm sitting. Okay, so now I'm just going to dry my stencil, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the same thing again for the large flower, but this time I'm going to use the butternut, I'm going to use the watermelon, and I'm going to use the prawn, because I'm picking 3. I'm picking 3 of my colours. So I'm going to go in again. I'm going to grab another sponge. Hopefully it's dry enough. I did wash my sponges earlier, so they are a little bit damp. It's fine. We can make it work. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. So just going to go in again. And I'm going to go round. Obviously, with having the sponge a little bit damper, the colours are not as opaque. They tend to be a little bit more translucent, but that's fine. Beautiful. Okay, so we've gone in with the first colour. Again, I'm just going to give it a quick dry. Then I'm going to go in with my second. Then I'm going to go in with my third. Okay, so second colour, I'm going to go in again. I'm just going to make sure that this is within there. I'm going to go in with the watermelon. Of course, you could use any colours you like. So if you're not using the new colours, you can use any colours you like. And if you're using opaque colours, you can use them, obviously you can use them in any order. If you're using more translucent, I would tend to go from light to dark. Just to make sure that they're going to be visible, that you're going to see what's going on. Okay, so number 2. third one. So again, as long as I make sure it's lined up there somewhere. And this one's going to be the prawn. So this is the darker colour. Prawn works so well with these colours. And I don't use prawn anywhere near enough. And I just know with the new colours, I'm going to be using it a lot more. Okay, so I'm just going to give that a quick dry. So we want to make sure they're completely dry because we are going to be using embossing powder. And obviously anything that is still wet is going to be a problem. The embossing powder is going to stick to it, okay? So what I'm going to do, I've got my large stamp. Let me just move this just slightly. There we go, that's a little bit better. So I've got my large stamp and I've got my small stamp and they're ready to go. They're on the blocks. So this is the large scribble and I'm also going to be using the small scribble stamp. So what I'm going to do, and this is why I used the VersaFine Clair today for this project, because most of you know I don't normally use it, especially over... I don't use it over Paperartsy paints because it takes forever to dry, okay? But for this, because I want to use clear embossing powder, and because I want to use clear embossing powder, I want it to stick. I want it to be able to stick. So, and this will stay wet a lot longer than the archival would. So that's why I've used this on this particular occasion, and I'm using a clear gloss superfine embossing powder. I'm going to be using that. So I'm just going to get my little sheet to put underneath. So what I'm going to do, I am going to come in with my stamp. So I'm just going to put this here. I'm just going to show you this. I'm hoping you can see because it's quite, obviously, this is a very well used stamp. It's one of my it's one of my favourites as well, Katie. It's one of my favourite stamps. So, yeah, I just want to kind of show you what I'm looking at. So with the larger one, I find, so I'm putting it here only because I'm hoping it's easy to see. So obviously they're very random shapes. All the shapes are very random. But on one of them, we've got this kind of square bit that kind of sticks out. Okay, it kind of sticks out of the side. Okay, and that is this square bit. It's quite obvious on the stamp. It's this square bit. You've got like a rounded bit, and then you've got a square bit, and you'll see it. You'll be able to see it, and you'll kind of, you know, you'll know. That's what I tend to do when I turn it over. So when I turn it over, I'm looking at this kind of square edge is this part, okay? Now, if I didn't line this up and I turned it and I did it another way, it really won't make a difference. It will still look really, really good. But if you want to line it up, or as best you can, if you go for this square part that sticks out, it's kind of square and it's got a little round bit, and it will sit over the top, okay? Does not have to be perfect. So I'm going to ink up my stamp. I'm going to get that inked. And I'm going to do one at a time just because I don't want the ink to dry. Okay, so I'm just going in with my black ink. I'm going to turn it over, line up this part with this part. I'm not even lining it up properly, you know, I'm just going to get it so it just needs to be near enough. Okay, I'm going to push it down. And normally I have to stand up now to do any kind of stamping. It's obviously a getting older thing. I don't seem to have the strength in my arms anymore. So when I take this away, how pretty does that look? It looks beautiful. So I'm going to go straight in with my embossing powder. I'm going to go over the top. So this is my clear embossing powder. I just want it to stand out a little bit. So clear embossing powder. I'm just going to go in. Let's tap it off. Get rid of the powder. I literally did this earlier. I went to put the powder back in the pot and tipped half of it over my desk. Because of course that's what you do. So I'm just going to move this just slightly. Let me just move the camera slightly. There we go. So I'm going to go straight in. No, do you know what? I don't need to. I'm gonna stamp the other two, get the embossing ink on, and then we'll emboss them all at the same time. So I'm just going to go in, give it a good old ink up, and again I'm going to flip it over. I'm doing this part, which is the square part, with this part, which is the square. As I said, I am not even worried if it doesn't work perfectly, because the nature of the stamp, it really doesn't matter if it's not lined up perfect. You can really get away with it. So for people like me who are not the best at stamping and, you know, stenciling and stuff, it's just going to work really well. You really can't go wrong with it. So I'm just going to give that a go. And then I'm going to stamp the last one, and then we'll heat emboss. A little flick. And then I've got one more, which is the small one. And what I'm going to do, so as I said, right, so on the small one, I haven't even done the outer edge, okay? So, whereas this one, I did all 3 layers. This one, I've only done 2, okay? So on this one, what I found is, there's one pointy edge, okay? And I just kind of go in, and as long as that pointy edge is kind of facing outwards, I don't even worry. We've got 5 petals. I've got my pointy edge. It's going to face out to the pointy edge, and I'm just going to go in the middle. Okay, because don't forget, we haven't done that outer edge. We've got nothing to line it up with. But what we will have then, it means that we've got this white edge. Okay, so that is going to look really cool against our background. So as I said, you don't need to do the whole thing. You can just do a couple of the, a couple of the inserts, the stencil, or you could just do one. You could just do one in the center, and the rest could be white. So let's tap that off, and we're gonna put this away, because you know what happens. We're going to be doing some more embossing, but we'll put it away. Hey, Susan. So, and I'm going to get my heat tool, and we will get this embossed. So they look lovely. That the clear embossing just adds a little bit extra. Just want to bring this one in just to show you this one, because I did this one earlier. So this is one of the larger flowers, but I did it again just using the center two parts of the stencil, not using that outer part. So I just used the center part and then had the white around the outside. So obviously you could do that as well, and just have your white edges, just, and again you could just use the center part if you want. And you can see, you know, these inside bits do not 100% line up, but because of the nature of the stamp, it doesn't matter. They don't need to. Okay, so we've got those. We can let's put those to one side, and we're going to go back. So we'll put these to one side. We do need to cut these out, but we will do that afterwards, because that will be reasonably quick. They're quite easy to cut. We'll put this to one side, and we are going to come back in with our background, because we're gonna emboss on this now. We're going to be embossing on that. So we'll put this to one side. It does look really good with the white part as well. So I just wanted to show that you don't have to do, you know, it doesn't have to be that you use all three parts of the stencil. You can use just two parts. You can just use one part if you wanted. You could just use the outer part and just have one colour if you wanted. Okay, so what we are going to do with this, I am going to use, so I'm going to use my larger stamp. I'm just going to give this a quick wipe off, because I'm going to use this now with my embossing ink, and I'm going to be embossing on my background in white. So I'm using the larger stamp. I've got my embossing pad. Let's make sure you can see. Let's bring you up just a tiny bit. So I've got my large stamp, I've got my background, I've got my embossing pad, and I've got some bright white. So bright white embossing powder, and I'm going to be using the bright white for this. So this, you do not have to, you know, there's no rhyme or reason. We're just going to start stamping. Because it is a scribble stamp, we can literally just, you know, we can stamp anywhere. It's going to work. And we can do the whole page. We don't have to stop in between, because the embossing ink will stay wet on the paint for some time. Now you can see, obviously I've still got a little bit of black on my stamp. Doesn't matter. By the time we put the white ink on, it's not gonna, we're not gonna see it. So I'm gonna go in. I'm kind of crossing over a little bit. You can overlap a little bit. So I'm hoping you can kind of see that. Yeah. And I'm just going to go all over. So I'm going to go over the entire card. So I'm just going, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you place those stamps, as long as we cover the entire background. And I'm just turning my stamp as well, so that I don't end up with everything facing the same way. Not that, to be quite honest, not that you would notice when it all gets put together. Okay, nearly there. So we go there. There. little bit at the top and a little bit at the side. So obviously, if there's any little gaps, so I've got a little gap there, I've got a tiny gap at the side. As long as we put something there, doesn't matter if they cross over. Perfect. So I'm just going to flip this over because obviously I've just stamped on that. So white embossing powder, I'm going to put that all over the top. Obviously make sure your background is dry. Mine was dry. You do not want there to be anything there that is wet because it will stick to it. Your embossing powder will stick and it will make a big mess. Okay, so then we can lift this up, hold on to it. Just going to turn it and give it a little flick. Perfect. So you'll kind of see now that it doesn't matter anymore if my painting wasn't perfect in the background, because you really can't see the lines anymore. It goes over. Okay, so let's bring that back in. Hopefully you can see that. Let's get the heat tool on that. There we go. So you can see straight away now, doesn't matter what else has gone on in the background. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that I've overlapped my stamps because the stamps are scribbly anyway. Doesn't matter that they've overlapped. You know, you can't do it wrong. You cannot do it wrong. So it looks really, really pretty. So let's have a look. What have we got to do next? So what I think we'll do, we're going to do our border around the edge because we've got paint to do on that, and we've got some stamping and embossing, black embossing, because I think that will then, apart from a little bit of splatter at the end, that will be all of our painting out the way, painting and embossing. So better to get it out the way now, I think. So you're going to want your, let's get our black page. We're going to attach. Let's get attached. And we're going to want our larger white sheet. I am going to go in, I am going to use foam tape. So I'm going to use my foam tape. I am going to attach my background to the black. Let's do it now. Let's get it done. Now, if you want to ink around the edge of this, you can. I haven't done, the reason I haven't done, because sometimes I do, people, if you've taken a class with me, you know, sometimes I ink around my edges, sometimes I don't. Because I'm putting this onto the black card, I want that sharp, crisp edge. So because I want the sharp, crisp edge, I'm not going to ink. Of course, if you are one of these people that feel like your page or your cards are not finished unless you ink, then do go ahead and do it. I'm kind of lining it up the best I can without having to stand up. So it finishes it off. Having that edge around it really does finish it off as well. So we've got our background down, that's ready to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to create this background. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the stencil again, and we're going to use I'm using the zinc paint this time. So I'm using the zinc paint, and I'm using this part of the stencil. So this is the kind of the little circles, the little circle cluster. That's what we're going to be using. Okay. And I'm going to use the zinc. Let's put a little bit more of that onto my map because I'm probably going to need that. And you could do that. You could do it any colour you like. I did start out, I was just going to do the black stamping, but I just thought it added something to it to go in with the paint as well. I just thought it added a little something to it. So let me just dry this sponge. It's a little bit wet. There we go. That's a bit better. A little bit better. So I'm going to go in with my zinc. So zinc paint. And what I'm doing is I'm just lining it up with the edge. Lining it up with the edge of the card. It does not have to be perfect. Okay. And I'm just going to go in and very, very quickly, I'm going to add this all the way round. Okay. So I'm just going to go in, just line it up. Does not have to be perfect. We are not even going to be lining the stamp up properly when we go to stamp. Okay, so you can kind of see, you're only going to be seeing a tiny bit of this edge. So, you know, you do not have to panic about getting it perfect. And I'm literally just going to go all the way around with the zinc. And then I'm going to get it dry. So I'm just creating a little border around the edge. That's all we're doing. Just lining it up. And going all the way around. Okay, and move to the side. You will literally, we've only got, I think we've got about there's about half an inch border around the outside that's showing. So you literally are just going to see a tiny bit of this. You do not have to be too careful. Okay. You can see I'm going really fast. Not messing around. If my stenciling isn't perfect, it's not going to notice. Nobody's going to know. Okay, let's go there. Get in there. You know, and if I've missed a little bit there, let me just put something in there. I feel like it needs something there. Let's just put a little bit in there. You can see I'm really not being too careful. Let's go in. You will not notice. So if you're stenciling, it's gone a bit awry, like mine normally does. This is one project you really are not going to have to worry. So let's go there. And then we've got this little bit left. I'm just going to turn my stencil because as I said, it doesn't matter. Turn my stencil and just add a little bit here. For this particular project, we're not even going to worry about trying to line the stamp up. We are just going to stamp. Okay, so I'm just going to give that a quick dry because I do want to add, I want to do the same as we did with our flowers. So with this, I want to add the black stamping and then clear embossing powder over it. So obviously I want to make sure that this paint is dry before we start stamping. Paint's dry so fast, you really don't have too much of an issue. So I'm going to be ready with my, so I want my clear gloss powder, I want my VersaFine pad, and I'm going to be using, so on the stamp set, this is the one that we're going to be using. Okay, so this is the dotty cluster. So it's like a dot cluster. It does line up, okay? You can line it up. We're not going to worry about lining it up for what we're doing right now because I want you to see, yes, you can line it up. And it's quite easy to line up because you've got a point at one end and you've got a rounded end at the other. So you will be able to see if you're just stamping, if you're just stenciling just that part of the stencil, you'll be able to see which way it needs to be lined up. It's really not difficult at all. But I want to show you that it actually doesn't matter if you don't line it up at all. Okay, so I'm just going to grab a block. I'm going to use my, let's take this way. I'm going to use my VersaFine Clear, my black. I'm going to add some ink. So you'll see on my page, I've kind of got bits that kind of stick out, okay? Well, you can kind of see that on the stamp. There's like a natural kind of point in the middle of the stamp. So as long as it's somewhere near there, it's going to work. It doesn't matter. So I'm literally just going to go in. Okay, I'm going to go. Now you can see, I just want to show you that has not lined up perfectly, okay? But it really doesn't matter. It's going to look great. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do, I'll probably do half at a time. I'm going to do half and then I'm going to emboss. Maybe one side and add the powder. It is like bubbles, Susan, you're right. It has got a bubble kind of vibe to it. It would work really well with the fish stamp or fish stamps. So I'm just going to go in. Do you know what? I think I'll get away with going all the way around this. This ink is so juicy. And you can see I'm really not trying to line this up. I am just going round. But it looks really cool having that grey in the background. And the same, you know, Susan, like you said, looks very much like bubbles. Well, if you did it with blue in the background, it would work really well, I think. As your bubbles. Maybe with some gold embossing would look nice. So I'm just going to go into this corner. I'm just going to, let's just find how can we fit that in. So you can see I've not even worried about lining it up. Just get it in there. Get it stamped. I'm all about making life easy. Don't overcomplicate things. You know, creating stuff's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be. Hey, Brenda. Blimey, it must be early where you are, or very, very late. So I'm just going to go in. Let's go there. you can see that didn't line up at all in any way, shape or form. But do you know what? Perfect. Let's put that to one side. Let's grab my sheet and we'll get some clear embossing powder onto that. Let's get it embossed. We'll get rid of this paint in a minute as well, because you know what happens. This is where you put your arm in it. I certainly put my arm in it. That's what I'll be doing. Let's go over with our, and of course you don't have to use clear embossing powder. If you haven't got clear embossing powder, just stamp in the black. It's still going to look good. I just like that it gives, it just gives an extra detail. It's nice. It's nice to kind of just see it sitting in the background. It kind of shines. Let's give that a little tap. Oh, thank you, Susan. So let's get rid of that. I think we're done. Oh no, we do need to emboss our sentiment. We will do that afterwards. We'll do that as soon as we've done this, because then we can put the embossing powder away. Because I've already managed to spill some. Because that's what we do, don't we? I make a mess every time. So I'm going to heat emboss this one. Let's get this one done. There we go. So I don't know, you probably can't see that on camera, but it's got a real nice shine. Like the black is really dark and it's got a real nice shine to it and a little bit of texture to it, you know, which is really nice. So that is that. So now we can add this to our background. So again, I did do this on, I did it on foam tape. Of course, you do not have to do it on foam tape. You could just do it with glue. Anybody that knows me knows everything goes on foam tape. So let's get that on there. Let's get it stuck down. Again, if you want to ink around the edges, of course you can. I'm not going to do that tonight, but if you want to, by all means do. Doesn't matter which way it goes, whether we've got the blue at the top or at the bottom. Hoping I can get this as straight as possible. That will have to do. So you can see, you really can only see a little bit. You can only see a tiny bit, but I do think it does make a difference having the paint in there as well. So using the stencil and then adding the stamping on top. Like I said, when I was originally playing around, I did originally stamp the border just in the black. And then had the idea of using the stencil as well. So we've now got our background done, so that's all done, ready to go. Let's put that to one side. We've got one more thing that we need to stamp and emboss, which is our sentiment. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to stamp it in black, and then we're going to clear emboss it. So I'm using a stamp from the Artistic Stamper. So I have a lot of Jenny's positive vibes quotes. I really do like them. There's something on there for everything. I think I've got about, I want to say I've got 8-10 sets, and there's something on them for everything. So obviously use what you have, and I'm going to stamp this. So I'm using Consider Yourself Hugged, which was the one I used originally. Again, I'm going to stamp it with the VersaFine Clear, and then we will run the clear embossing powder over the top. Okay, so it's really lovely. I like a stamp. I like a quote stamp that can be cut out, and that can be cut out quite squarely. I don't like ones where there's lots of curve, you know, lots of curvy writing, because then you can't cut them out properly. I like things that you can cut quite square. So I'm just going to go in again with my clear embossing powder. I'll lift it up, we'll give it a little tap. Let's put that to one side. Now I can put the lid on my embossing powder so I don't spill it. And we'll get this embossed, and then it will be ready to cut out. Okay. So what we need to do, we're gonna get our quote cut out. We're gonna get our flowers cut out now, and I'm also going to cut just 2 small strips. So you can see I just cut 2 small strips. They're not even the same size. I didn't do it, you know, there's no precision there. I'm just going to grab my scissors. Let's grab my scissors, and I'm just going to cut 2 strips so that I can make them look like they've got little stems. Obviously, if you want to use paper trimmer, use paper trimmer. I am just going to cut 2 strips, whatever thickness they end up. If you want to use a paper trimmer, as I said, you can. I should actually put my glasses on. I can't even see what I'm doing. So whether these are straight or not, I do not know. But do you know what? As long as they're straight enough, it's fine. Right, let's get the glasses on. So I'm going to cut my quote. I cut it into 2 pieces. Of course, I could leave it as 1, or I could cut it into 3. Completely up to you. So I'm just going to cut. Again, if you want to do this on a paper trimmer, you can. I am just going to cut. I can use. Look, I'm going to say it now. I can usually get quite a straight edge. And you know, now I've said that, it's going to be on the wonk somewhere. It's going to be all over the place. Okay. I'm going to do the same again. I am going to cut it into 2 pieces, and I'll be ready to ink those 2. Okay. Now what I want to do is cut my flowers. So obviously, because these flowers are messy, it doesn't even matter if you're cutting out, it's not perfect. And when you have them where they've got the white around the outside, even more so, because it really, you know, nothing is going to show. So I can cut these out pretty quick. You can see I'm not even being too careful. And if I end up with a little bit of white around the edge, that's fine. It doesn't even have to be even. So if I end up with some white around the edge in one area and then in another area there's no white, again, it's not going to matter. Perfectly imperfect. Okay, so I'm cutting these out quite fast. You know, you really don't have to be too careful with these. Let's get rid of my rubbish. Again, let's go around, cut these out. Again, really easy. Because I've gone outside the lines, it doesn't matter if I cut outside the line. You know, if there's a bit of white showing, if there's a bit of paint showing, you can see I'm just really going quite quickly. And I love that you can do that and that it doesn't look wrong. You know, I've already got, so there's a part there where there's already white inside the flower. So it doesn't matter that there's some white around the outside. This is, you know, considering it's a squiggly kind of scribbly flower, it's actually very, very easy to cut. Okay, and then last one, so this is my I'd be interested to see if anybody's done different colours. I know I told you what colours I was using, but I know lots of you do go off-piste. I'm nearly there. You can see I'm really not taking too much care cutting out. So you could make a whole bunch of these. You can make a whole bunch. You could just kind of sit, just adding paint, adding stamping. And you could make a whole bunch ready to use for different projects. So you've got you know, you could have lots of collage fodder all sitting there, all ready to go, like ready to use for whatever project you kind of choose. So I'm just going to add, oh, let's grab, just going to add a little bit of inking to the outside of my quote. Just a little bit, it just frames it. Not very much. There we go. So now we are ready. We're ready to assemble. So let's move these. Let's bring in our card. I'm gonna bring this back in just so it kind of, it doesn't distract us. Let's move the camera slightly. Come out a tiny bit. There we go. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to do the same as I did before. So I'm going to have one of my flowers is going to be here. One is going to be a little bit lower down. So I've purposely done it this way round so that obviously my turquoisey colours are against the pinks and yellows, and then my pinks and yellows are more against my turquoise and greys. Okay, and then I'm going to use that one in the middle. Okay, I am going to use my foam tape again. As I said, if you want to use your glue, you can use glue. I use foam tape for everything. Everything. Anybody who comes to a class with me will tell you how thick my journals are, because I use so much foam tape. So let's go in. We'll do one at a time. So of course in the background, obviously the background we just did with white. Okay, we put the colour down and we emboss with the white. We could have used the stencil to create some more detail in the background. So where I said to you, you know, just using maybe one piece of the stencil, maybe just the centre, it could have been that I could have used, so maybe in this area where we've got the turquoisey blue colours and the grey, maybe I could have used a darker turquoise, so maybe something like deep sea or something like that, but just the one piece, the very centre of the flower, and that would have added even more detail. And the same when I got to the top, I could have maybe picked out cerise, and cerise could have gone into just the centre. And it would have added more detail. So we've kept it quite simple, but there are other things, obviously, that you could do. Ways that you could change it up and kind of make it more detailed. Let's just go in, nearly there. Oh, do you know what? I don't need that bit, do I? No, I don't need it. Let's take that off. I don't want to put that bit there because it's going to overlap. So I'm going to kind of put that one. It's going to overlap there. I like having the 3D. I like it to stand up from the page. So there we go. So I can go in. My smaller one is going to sit on the top. Sit in the middle. So it just brings the colour out. It's just bringing all the colours back in. I'm going to go in now with my stems, and I'm just going to use some glue for these. They're very thin. I'm just going to go in and add. So I'm just going to go in and add a little bit of glue, just a little bit of white glue. I kind of slide that in. There, works perfect. I won't cut it off until I'm happy. Let's do the other one. And I've done the stems black just because then it matches in with the black that I've used on the page. So I'm trying to keep things consistent. And obviously I've got the black in the background, I've got the black borders, so it kind of makes sense to use the black. So I just want some foam tape now for my quotes. Just grab a piece. Again, you don't have to do this. I might at some point add a few gems. I might see what gems I've got. A few gems would look nice, I think. Okay, so let's put our quote on. I'm thinking maybe a couple of gems in the centre would look really nice. So go over there. And let's go. I'm hoping that's straight. It looks straight from here, but to be quite honest, when you're sitting the other side of the table, you can't always see, can you? You know what it's like. You have to stand up and view it. And so I'm just going to trim these off. Trim those off. Look great. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we are going to add a little bit of black splatter. You do not have to do this. I like to do it because it brings in it again. It's bringing the black into the background. So I'm going to use my black paint, and if you do this properly, you should not be splattering the walls and every person around you. You should be able to just do it and not make a huge mess. You should be able to get it on your project. So all I'm going to do, you can see I've got a little blob. You can see there's not very much black paint, just a little blob of black paint. I'm going into my water pot with a brush and I'm watering it down. Okay, now I will know if this is watered down enough, because if I load up my brush and I tap over my palette, can you see I'm getting little splats coming off, and I am literally just tapping the brush. I'm not putting any pressure there whatsoever, just tapping. Okay, so I'm loading up my brush so I know that that's good to go. If you have to really hit your brush, it's not watery enough. You need to add some more water. So I can go in and I can literally just go over my project. This matches in as well, because on the stamps themselves, they've got like little splats on the stamps. So this just helps to blend that in as well into your background. And I'm going over everything. I'm trying to stay clear a little bit of the quote. You can cover it if you're worried. My big thing is knowing when to stop. I think that's enough. Let's put that to one side. So let's have a little tidy away. Don't know about you, but as soon as I'm working, I end up with stuff everywhere. I end up working in the tiniest little space. Let's bring it in so you can see. And this is our, so I'm hoping you can kind of see the gloss on that as well. So there we go. Okay, there we go. So I hope you enjoyed that. Are there any questions before we go? I just want to make sure that nobody's got any direct questions, anything that you need answered before we disappear. Don't forget, as I said, you can do this as well. It looks really, really good with the white space. So as I said, I've only used the 2 center parts of the stencil for that one, and the same with the smaller ones, and you get this gorgeous white part around the edge. Looks really, really good. And it just means, like, this was, I can honestly say, this was one of my favourite, it still is one of my favourite stamp sets that I have ever done, and I used it a lot. You can see how much I used it. You know, the stamps are they're getting pretty worn out now. I've used them a lot. And it just means now that I am going to be pulling them out and I can use them again, and I can use them in a different way. So I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope for those of you that have got this stamp set, so this is TS, as we said, TS, let's bring it in, TS024. So TS024, which was the older stamp set, and the Stencil, which is a PS474. I hope that by doing this, by bringing this in, by designing this and doing it this way, I hope that it means for you guys that have already got this stamp, I hope that means that you can pull that stamp out again, and you can, you know, you can give it a new lease of life. You can get it out, you can start using it again, because how great is that? And for those of you that you don't have it, you've never seen it before in your life, and, you know, you're new to me and you've not seen this stamp set, you know, this stamp set's, probably a good 5-6 years old. So, if you haven't got it, you can get it. A lot of the retailers knew that I was doing this, and I've already stocked up and put a few into stock anyway. And if they haven't, your local store can order for you. Paperartsy do not discontinue any of their stamps and stencils, which for designers like me means that it is fantastic, because it means we can pull from all of our old stamps and stencils. We can use them over and over and over again, and we can use them in all different ways. You know, we can reuse, and it means that you can reuse your stamps and stencils too, and that you know that if you purchase the stamps and stencils, you are going to be able to use them over and over and over again. So I do hope that you've enjoyed. Thank you for bearing with me for this live. It's almost as long as a new release. I've taken almost as long as a new release, and I thought I'd done a pretty quick project as usual. Yeah, Leandra's saying they are still shipping to stores with the July release. If it's not there, then contact your local store to order, and they will make sure that they can get it for you. And that applies obviously to the newer products, but also to the older products as well. Certainly this one that I've used today. So thank you for joining me. I hope that you found that useful. Obviously, I will save this video. I will post it into the group. I will post it also onto my cafe group, and I will also post it onto my YouTube channel. So it will be there for you to refer back to in the future. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.